So yeah, we are recording. We are now broadcasting live. So Vegas rules can't apply because um, because this is being recorded and broadcast to other people. So thank you everybody for joining. There's 9 of us here. We've got Fran, Caleb, Dominic, Justine. I have to go around the list. Daniel has joined. Josh, excellent. So I really wish that recording and streaming this would allow, a more of a grid view so you can see everybody else, but it only pings round and records the person who's actually speaking. So if we click on the
try it in Zoom, Colin.
I know, but I need to buy a license. I don't have a license.
Do you want one? I have one.
maybe we'll do that. This could be a good topic of discussion. What is the best platform for doing these things and having these virtual meetings? I know, for webinars and these panel discussions, like over the last few years, I know Justine and I have been on a number of sort of these virtual panel discussions or virtual meetings. Everything has been used from Hangouts on Air back in the day, which I loved because it used to have the lower third where you could put your name and have a little icon. We've used WebEx and GoToMeeting, but that certainly could be a discussion. So if we click on the people page, and then it should list people in alphabetical order. If you just want to go through, introduce yourself a little bit, say,
everybody will be at the top of their own list.
Well, does they do it in alphabetical order for everybody? Oh, all right. I'll start, and then I'll call the next people on my alphabetical list. And they can just we know who's who. Like who haven't met each other. I'm Colin McCarthy. Work for an advertising agency based in New York, even though I have an English accent, and this doesn't really look like New York because I'm in my basement at the moment. And I've been working on a number of projects this week, so it's good to be quiet and alone. So yeah, Solve is something that we're trying to get off the ground and have these virtual meetings to get everybody together and then record it for our colleagues who can't make it, or make it into a little sort of podcast video cast. So next down on my alphabetical list would be Caleb Spring.
Hi, so I'm Caleb Spring. I'm the one only IT guy for a 25-person law firm in Rochester, New York. I'm working from home today because it's a snow day. They actually canceled work because the roads are so slick and just so much snow rate. Rochester, New York has the snowiest city according to recent newspaper articles I've read. So this happens quite regularly.
Oh, wow. Okay. Dominic, over there in possibly snowy Germany.
Yes, a kind of snowy Germany. I'm looking tired today because I've been at the World Cup for skiing as a volunteer today. So that's why I'm in my brother's home office as well. So I got the nicest technology today. I'm running a G Suite and SaaSOps consultancy, and we do implement and sell G Suite licenses as well as other SaaS tools as well. So.
Okay, cool. And then Fran, many of us might know.
Hi, I'm Fran Slattery. I'm a customer success manager here at Better Cloud. Really excited to be listening in today.
Okay, all right. And then next alphabetically is Josh. Is he able to unmute himself?
There we go. Yeah, that was very difficult for some reason. Josh Harper. I actually am the IT procurement analyst at Workiva. It's a software development firm here in Ames, Iowa. Derek Martin actually joined the last Solve, and he's actually my direct manager. But I watched that video from the last Solve, and it brought up a lot of good points. So I'm actually on the SaaS operations team, but I primarily manage and manage all the procurement processes for all of our SaaS applications, including our entire portfolio of about 220 some applications for the organization.
And are they all SaaS based?
Those are all the SaaS based ones. I don't actually touch the endpoint software.
Wow. Okay, that's no wonder you need a whole team to manage that.
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
Okay. How many end users do you have?
About 1,600.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a high percentage of apps per user.
Yes.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
I was gonna say procurement, like I was picturing like tens of thousands of employees, but
I am
that's pretty
I'm the
interesting.
only procurement analyst for the company, so that is an interesting thing. Also, we just now hired an accounting procurement manager that will be handling the procurement for the rest of the company. But no, I primarily handle just our SaaS applications.
Nice.
All right. Okay, cool. And then down another J, Justine.
Hello. I am the director of IT and SaaSOps at Better Cloud. You may know us. I am based out of New York, but today I'm working remotely. I'm visiting some in-laws. I guess I only have one pair of in-laws, so just the in-laws.
That would be an interesting family setup with multiple in-laws.
You never know.
That's everyone's worst nightmare, though. So many in-laws.
Two are way too many.
Two's enough.
All right, and then last on the list, Rose.
Hi, I'm Rose. I'm a strategic technology partner at a nonprofit for higher education called Strata Education Network. Yeah, I'm one of the primary SaaS administrators for our organization.
Okay, all right, excellent. Well, now we know who everybody is. I have been reminded in the channel that external domain streaming doesn't currently work, so I'm going to stop the streaming because I'm streaming to nobody. Another SaaSOps live and learn moment, which was going to be one of the discussion things that I was going to try and bring up was sort of SaaS failures and how do you sandbox stuff and test stuff before going live. But I'll put that down as like a third topic. The two things that I thought would be great, and we, with this sort of format, we were going to try and solicit, questions from people or propose topics and then get people on. There was a question earlier on in the week, or maybe it was last week, about, I think it was from Jesse Newman, was how do your bosses measure your success as a manager? And I know, for a lot of companies, like ours, the end of Q4 of last year, this is the time where, people do go through and do reviews, on themselves, on their team managers, 360 feedback on colleagues, etc. I just wondered if, how were other people, struggling with this, dealing with this? There are SaaS-based applications to help you with that, sort of performance monitoring aspect of your team. Who wants to jump in first? Anybody? Thoughts? Like we use a product, we use a SaaS-based product, and people can put in their goals, and there are a number of key things that, every quarter people reflect on their performance, and then, as a line manager, you write, comments and provide them. Naturally there should be, that regular engagement. But the question that was posed in the Slack channel specifically, I guess, about how does your boss measure the success as a manager, not necessarily how do you manage and monitor, your teams. Is everybody here a people manager?
I'm not.
No? Okay.
I'm not any longer, no, but I used to be.
Right.
Well, so the interesting thing about that conversation, Colin, was that we really focused a lot on like quantitative analysis, so things you could measure.
Right,
And I find performance reviews to be a very qualitative way to do those things, although you can have like measurable goals, right? So I don't know. I gave my thoughts in the thread about giving out even a survey to your coworkers that goes directly to your boss or something like that. But I don't know what analytics people have, because that was the struggle in the question, right? Was that when you move from a contributor and you have specific SLAs you have to meet, or you have specific work deadlines and stuff like that, when you move to a manager, you're no longer directly responsible for any of that stuff.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Per se.
Yeah.
When I used to manage people, my objectives and goals were strictly based on their outcome. How many tickets did they close? How quickly? We had, SLAs, 5 days, 7 days, things like that. And so if they're meeting their goals, then I must be doing a good job, and they're happy. They did have a, kind of like Rose said, an ability to report on how they thought I was doing directly to a manager. But really on the month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter basis, if they're meeting their goals, then I'm doing what I need to do. I did have some other goals outside, like they had to have so many coachings in the one-on-one time with employees that were I was directly responsible for, that I had to make sure I met. But they're all quantitative. There was no abstract goals related to that. They always wanted a number behind it so they could then plug it into whatever system they were using at the time and see how well we were doing as an organization.
Right.
I do like NPS scores, Net Promoter Scores.
It seems weird to ask, would you recommend this boss to your friends or family, though?
Yes, it feels weird, but it's still a good question to ask. Because would you recommend your boss to work, or would you to your friends? Would you?
Right.
Do you want your friends and family to have the same experience as you have? And if that's a no, or why would you want? Why would that leader be a good leader? If that's for
Is
many
there
people.
software for that, for NPS, internal NPS? Feels like there would be.
Just use the Google Forms.
Yeah.
I would just use Google Forms in a.
The hard part is that we're IT
environment for
admins,
that.
right? Like, I can get my hands on anything if I really wanted to. So it's. I struggle with saying like, oh yeah, put that in a Google Doc that nobody should have access to, because if I need to, I will find it.
Right. Yeah. It's with the power we have does come great responsibility.
Yes.
I remember once I did abuse that responsibility. It was a secret Santa, and somebody had given me a really good secret Santa gift. And they had printed out like a little message, but they'd foolishly done print the header, and they'd done it in Google Docs. So I had the Google Doc URL. So I typed in the whole of the document ID into a tool that we all know, and I was able to find out who the original document owner was. So she was very annoyed and said, "It's supposed to be a secret Santa." And I said, "But this is a very thoughtful gift, and I needed to find out who had sent it." So
that's hilarious.
So, yeah, but it is, some of those. It is difficult. What about if you don't have those SLAs for how many tickets are being closed? Do people poll their users? Do you do are there regular surveys that the company does or sends out? I know there's a number of those employee engagement SaaS-based companies. Glint is one of them. There's a few others that I've seen that will gauge not only your staff's happiness or your team's happiness and engagement, but also the end users as well. Does anybody use something?
Yeah, I was gonna say that we do a annual survey, though I forget what it was through. I don't know if Fran remembers.
A friend just pinged me. She had to drop off something. It's got to go and tend to business. So
Yeah, well, we do have like an annual survey that goes around from the company leadership, but I also like to send around a Google form. I, in the past, have done it annually, sometimes twice a year, but I think I want to try doing it quarterly this year to like really get a sense of, are we seeing impact as we continue on through our roadmap through the year?
What does that survey look like, Justine? Like, how many questions are on it? Who do you send it to?
For the one that I make in Google Forms, I try to keep it short just because if it's too long, people will never respond to all of it. Like 10 questions, probably. You know, it's like, how's your experience in the conference rooms? Or is there anything missing that you feel like we could help provide so that your day-to-day work is more efficient? Things like that. And I usually send it to the whole company.
Right. The caution or struggle I've found about some of those surveys in trying to create them is that you can preempt the answers or the responses based on the questions you ask or the options you give to ask as answers. Yeah, it is always good to have a way for users to provide feedback, because then of course in this case with how do you provide your value to your manager, then you could say we've got a happy user base, therefore there is I would assume I am doing a good job. All right, any other insights on that discussion point, or should we move to another topic that I had earmarked?
So I was actually able to pull up the manager survey that was just sent out. We just did that. So we go on a regular cadence of 1-to-1. So as far as direct feedback to our managers, we have just a regular meeting time every 2 weeks to kind of sit down, what's going on really kind of in your life at work. What are some what if any obstacles are there? What can they help with? Things like that. But we did actually have a manager behavior survey that was just sent out from our employee development team. So we have been going through a program basically called Managing the Workiva Way, and just kind of going through everything.
Josh, just to say, is everything you say okay to be in the public realm? Because we will, but we are recording this and would put it out on YouTube for others to look at.
Nothing. I'm not going to go through anything in detail. I just know that the management team, the human resources department and some other teams have put together this management resource that happens, I want to say quarterly, that focuses on things like communication, strategic agility, accountability, collaborative leadership, development, and engagement. And so we just sent out this survey with I'd say there's 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 questions. And it goes off of kind of a, rarely, occasionally, frequently, or not applicable multiple choice answers. And as far as the tool's concerned, they're using Google Forms. The problem, I think, that sometimes these tools, especially, that you want as blunt, objective information as possible, and really, you kind of want that anonymous feedback, because you want it as raw as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem that it comes back to is, okay, well, is this tool actually, is it submitting it anonymously or not? And
yeah, with Google Forms, we always have those questions.
Yeah.
There is
I think. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say there's a brilliant Dilbert comic where Dilbert's boss is saying to Dilbert, according to the anonymous company survey, you're not happy with management. And then the next frame is just Dilbert, with a surprised look at him, and then the last frame is the boss going, "Oh right." I'll dig it out and share it in the channel.
That's perfect.
I know I've got it. Let me find it.
But what I could probably do, honestly, I could probably copy this survey and send it out and put it in the chat also. it kind of goes on what Dominic was saying about it. It kind of is in that Net Promoter Score ideal. So it gets to a point where I think they put some quantitative numbers behind it and just kind of do an overall rating.
Right.
I'm always curious about surveys that allow their users to, opt out, like they just don't do it. Because I feel like then you have to worry about self-selection, right? So your numbers or your feedback that you're getting may not be fully accurate. But then at the same time, right, everything we require people to do is just like one more thing for them. So,
well,
I don't know. I think that's one of the complications. Yeah.
Well, you have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt and just say, okay, well, we sent it out to 100 employees and we had a response rate of our goal response rate was 40%. We got a response rate of 50%. So we can associate that with the number of users. But I mean, if that response rate is pretty low, then you may very well be only looking at the people that are really, really happy with their job, or the people that are really, really pissed about it. Yeah, exactly. And the people that are in between are just a little bit too busy to go through that process. That's great.
Yeah, this is my favorite Dilbert. So it's perfect, absolutely perfect. All right, great. Yeah, it's very interesting to hear how other people are doing it. And it is great to hear that other people are doing it, because there is a time element to it. It's often a lot of companies, I think, traditionally have overlooked this. Things are getting a lot better. The technology is, there to make that, feedback easier to obtain, collate, present, analyze. So, all right. So we're halfway through. Right, getting to past. I'd only put in for 45 minutes for the call. Should we jump to another subject?
Sure. You wanted to talk about the GAM thing that we talked about, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I was very interested into that because there was a discussion on the SaaSOps channel, people weighing up the pros and cons of, one of the management tools that are available. There is a growing field of SaaS management tools, that are coming out. I posted about one company that I'd followed that they'd done a big update to one of their tools. But yeah, since the birth of G Suite, Google have had GAM, which allows you to administer, manage, destroy your domain, all from the command line. So has anybody? I've tinkered with it. I haven't used it. Has anybody here used it in anger? Or have it in deployment? Maybe not anger is the right word. In deployment.
We have
Yes.
GAM for all of our domains. It is, so it's open source for anybody who doesn't know what it is. Hopefully most people do. But
Google Apps Manager.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and we use GAM Advanced Extended 3.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's the only advanced one that they support anymore, right?
Yes.
I think GAM Advanced is still around, isn't it?
I was talking
I
to
think it doesn't get it.
Ross, and he said it doesn't get any more updates, I think.
Yeah, I think that didn't get. I think it didn't get updates from September on or something.
Yeah.
Talking to Ross, so casual.
Yeah, me too.
He's very approachable. It's great. I rarely use it, and when I have a question, sometimes they're like, let's do a hangout on this, and it's
we spend a lot of time talking about GAM in the G Suite channel of Better IT. So, so the question was, is it viable to replace Better Cloud with GAM?
Yeah, or another tool.
Or another tool like Cloud Manager from CloudM, or
gPanel, Primevo.
Yeah.
There's a few others.
There's a
it is
few others out there.
viable if your time is less important than your money. So
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
so I've
so-
been a little bit critical of Better Cloud, and I can say this publicly because it definitely is public knowledge. And some of their pricing structure changes in the last like 4 years since we've been using them. Because I think it is cost prohibitive to a lot of people. And even if Better Cloud is flexible on those prices, like they don't acknowledge that publicly. And people, I know I don't like to contact salespeople. So if they have transparent pricing on the website, I take them at their word that that's their pricing. And so,
Yeah, I don't
I
think
know
there's
that is.
there isn't
yeah.
a single company or SaaS company that has transparent pricing on their website. I was listening.
That's true.
I was listening to another SaaS-based podcast. It's actually Jesse Newman's. Is it Newman's whatever his last name is? His podcast. Tab Geeks. He had a podcast,
yeah.
and they were talking about SaaS management there, and the discussion was about I can't remember what the term was, but it's not 100% accurate pricing on a website, and that whatever's advertised on the website, it's like going into a car dealership. Just because the sticker price,
the sticker price on the window is not.
Yeah, you can negotiate, but it's how much you can negotiate depending on the the licensing that you have. And if you aren't a huge corporation or have a big budget, then it is so a lot of those things are cost prohibitive. So free tools do get used, or more cost effective ones. From that thread, there was more horror stories than success stories. Well, and obviously because people don't talk about all the successes, but it did seem to be the vulnerability or the worry that with GAM that you could do a lot of damage.
But
I think it depends on your comfort level with CLI tools, though.
Right, that's the case with any tool you use. Even Better Cloud, you can still wreck your system. I don't personally have Better Cloud, but I assume that way. But we tried to get a quote, and it was too expensive.
You can wreck your system.
Yeah, exactly. With GAM, we went through a domain name change. Our company name changed. One of the partners of the law firm left, and so we added more names, got a new domain, and I did all the changes with GAM. On the command line, a lot of Ross help on that one. But I went through changing everyone's email addresses, updating their signature block, all that stuff, all through the command line, and nothing broke. And the GAM advanced version, you can do a pre-run of the commands.
Okay.
And so it'll tell you kind of the outcome of what it would be before you actually commit those to change, which is nice. The basic version, I don't believe, has that, though.
Okay. Is there a cost to the advanced version then?
Nope.
No.
It just requires more knowledge. Yeah.
It was also one of the first versions to support shared drives.
Right.
So yeah, that's one of the big things. I guess people were saying, in the admin console, you can kind of customize roles. In Better Cloud, you can customize roles so that people only have access to what they need. With GAM, you don't really have those options.
Okay.
Unless you
can
portion
limit what
out the
APIs
API.
Yeah,
unless you portion out the APIs and stuff. I didn't know if GAM would accept partial API access, right?
I've never tried it, but I assume you could, because when you create the
setup.
Yeah, when you set it up, you pick which APIs you want it to itself to have access to. So I don't see why you couldn't.
Yeah.
So we actually built automations based on a GAM. We run at the moment we run mostly reporting automations based on GAM. So we gather data from, for example, one of my latest projects was group memberships, and put them into a Google Sheets, and that updates every 5 hours or something, and that puts it in the same Google Sheet every time, and that only works with GAM Advanced, for example. So you can specify where it should go, in which sheet is specifically. And you can also read commands off of a Google Doc or a Google Sheet from GAM Advanced. So we're doing stuff like that with this a lot. And that helps us to have our wiki, which is fully based off of Google Docs formats, to be automatically updated with information from our group memberships, for example.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a
Took
really
a couple of
interesting
hours
thing
to set up.
Yeah,
I'll
you could
post
totally
something,
tie that
yeah.
into Google Apps script stuff too.
You could, but then I would
Ingesting
need
data
to write.
from other tools and stuff.
But then I would need to write Google script, which I'm not the scripter. I can write CLI tools. I can write CLI commands
just
by
Google
now.
it like developers do.
Took me a year. Yeah, took me a year to do that, but now I'm pretty confident with it, and now that's how we do that, and that's a lot of that. And then I could go off every time these spreadsheet updates, put something in there or something, but that's not something that I do at the moment. I have to ask my brother for that.
Right. Oh yeah, carry on, Caleb.
I was going to say, I think the difference is, so you have the command line that's free versus Better Cloud, which has a GUI. So if you're able to make the same things and you are a visual person and you have the money to afford one of these things that sits on top of that, I mean, Better Cloud just using the same API that GAM is using for free, but you don't have, you literally have to look at the API code sometimes, which GAM posts on there, to see exactly which command you want to run and how the output's gonna happen and things like that. Where with something like Better Cloud, just click a few boxes and hit apply, and boom, there you go.
Right. And some of those actions that we run in Better Cloud are actually scripted actions, right? So they're not direct API endpoints that you're hitting. One of the interesting things too, obviously, about Better Cloud and some of these other tools like Cloud Migrate or Cloud Manager called me yesterday asking, like trying to do a sales thing. And I was like, we use Better Cloud for a lot more than G Suite. So I think that is, if it's already in your budget, but that's the thing is like, I'm the person who writes the ROI stuff so that we can get Better Cloud renewed every year. And every year it's like, are we really spending this money on this? And then I remind them like, hey, remember that G Suite migration we did? And you asked all these questions. And I was like, we do that in Better Cloud. Like, do you remember all of these workflows that we run and like how much time each one of those takes? Like, yeah, so I understand that they're hard to pivot, but I think once you're invested in the environment, like anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to also evaluate the time it takes to get out.
Yes. Yeah. And you can get out because they're not holding any of your data. If they're, moving from, box.com to Dropbox or.
Right. It's just API keys, really.
Yeah. Moving, even like moving, I guess from Okta to one login or something else or whatever another comparable product was would be very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like our Okta implementation took, like a full month pretty much of my constant attention to do basic user lifecycle management in there. And so that's a cost, right?
Yeah. It's great to hear that there's error checking in the advanced version of GAM. So that will bring me to, I guess, the third and last discussion question is how do we manage large scale change management? How do we test things? Obviously, as an epic fail, I didn't test some things for this call and made assumptions. And when we are busy and trying to do things quickly, obviously things get overlooked.
Test in production, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't always test changes, but when I do, it's in production.
It's in production.
Yeah. But obviously we don't have a test. Do people have a test G Suite domain? You do.
I have them for projects.
Right.
Yes.
So when we do authentication change, like large authentication changes, I have them for those. But normally no.
Right. Yeah, we have a couple of test domains, but nothing that replicates, the production environment, which you would normally
That's the
have.
hard part. Is you
that's
want
the hard part.
like a replication of your production environment, and
Yeah.
that's not easy to do.
No,
I know it's not
That's
easy to do
not
for
a
our
feature.
vendors either. Like
Right.
Like a true sandbox.
yeah,
like a real sandbox.
We're a user of Freshservice as our ticketing system, and I think it was in December they launched the sandbox feature. Absolutely love it because spin it up, it's an exact replica. I can make changes and test things in the sandbox, and then I can push those changes to production and then kill it and start again. That is, I don't know how they've done it, but it's
so fancy.
Yeah, but they're not really they're not storing any data. So that was,
Right.
G Suite trying to do a sandbox would be very difficult because, you've got all those Google Docs.
The sandbox and Freshservice, we have them too with the ISQ as well. And the sandbox has 10 users in them and 10 companies or groups of your people in there. So they very limited, and you don't replicate any tickets and so on. So that's something that
it's a limited replication.
Don't have. They have all the settings, all the workflows, all the automations that you have, and all your agents, I think. But that's it.
Yeah, it all depends on what does need to be replicated, I guess. So
I almost wonder if
I would love to see
containerization,
all settings replicated.
Oh, what was that, Dominic?
In G Suite, if we get a sandbox, I would just want to have all my users and all my OUs and all my settings. Nothing more for core apps. That's what I would like to see for a G Suite sandbox.
Yeah,
and groups
would be the
users groups. That was me.
Mm-hmm.
And apps somewhere.
I almost wonder if containerization. I don't know if you guys are super familiar with app development these days, but Kubernetes and containerization has taken over. But I almost wonder if it will help, because then in theory, right, you could spin up an additional environment with read-only access to your data and see kind of like as a I guess improved sandbox style environment. But I mean,
our apps,
the transition to that is very difficult. Yeah.
So without that,
don't run in containers.
So without
you're one step ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. This is proving why possibly we'll have to find a better tool or a different tool for future broadcasts. Maybe we'll or future sessions. Choose. You don't like Zoom? No, nobody does. Why are we whispering? I don't know. I don't like Zoom. The worst thing about Zoom is trying to.
In our next call, we should discuss video conferencing
solutions. Yeah.
Let's go Teams.
We could do Microsoft Teams. Like, we got licenses, so
we just do a Slack call.
Yeah. So without sandboxing everywhere, how do we? In the last couple of minutes, does anybody have a tried and tested way of testing SaaS-based stuff before going live? How do you? Because I've made mistakes. Some mistakes have been in the past. Other mistakes have been yesterday. There's only so much thought process. It's because you can't run a live test on a lot of things. You have to think through every single eventuality and discuss it with colleagues. But it's only when you click go that you realize, oh, I've overlooked that.
I'd love to test run migrations. That's so hard to do properly, to do test run migrations, and that's every time when I press that button, I'm so scared.
What is everything? What is what people are scared of?
Data loss.
Yeah.
I think data loss is probably the big one because everything else can be fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making a
Just data
change.
loss. Yeah.
Making a change that removes or deletes data.
Well, I mean, the other one
having your name
obviously,
associated with it.
yeah. The other one obviously is exposure, data exposure.
Yeah.
You know, especially because that one can be really insidious. Like you may not realize that it's happened until like somebody's like, hey, so and so had access to this, or I saw an anonymous rabbit in my Google Doc, or like, what does this mean? You know.
Yes.
So this
So I
doesn't work
realize
for
that
all.
we have.
Oh, go ahead, Cal.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say for my organization, it's smaller, but what we do is we just have a test organizational unit for G Suite specifically, but a
We
lot
do
of our
too.
stuff ties into that. And so since we can't have a sandbox for all of our things, we just do a small subset of test users, and we warn they're live users, unfortunately. So, but we warn them, and they're ones that basically have agreed to allow us to screw or allow me, the only guy, to screw up their thing if I do it wrong, and they know that they might be without whatever tool it is while I
How'd you find
undo
those
what
people?
I did. It's a small organization. They're the ones that seem to be more tech savvy and like to be on the cutting edge of things. So I just say, hey.
Anyway, I
so,
phrase that question.
yeah.
My
So
users
we,
are going to be like,
true
you're going to
beta
do what
testers.
now?
yeah. So I have 5 of the 25, and we just kind of run with it and implement and see how it goes. And if it goes well, then we push it out to everyone. If it doesn't, then I've hopefully documented, and sometimes I haven't done that as well as I needed to roll back what I've changed. But it would be nice if a lot of these SaaS things had a way to export all of your settings. So if you did screw it up, you just import them all back in and you're good to go.
Yeah.
But G Suite, we use Jump Cloud. They don't have a way to export everything, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's so difficult, doing that doing that snapshot, and a lot of these, and there doesn't seem to be a consistency in the settings you change, because some settings you put a tick and it's live, other settings you have to go in and you have to click save. And sometimes in the admin panel I see you have to click save in multiple places.
Right.
If you end up going too far down and then you go back out, you have to save each time. And the live saves can be problematic at times. Like I know calendar is an example where you click a button and it's a live save. But that has a limited impact of what you're doing. But yeah, there needs to be some consistency and that ability to do a snapshot of your settings. So
I mean, in the absence of that, right, like you were basically just keeping track of stuff on spreadsheets manually, pretty much. Like I was just in some of Steve's, I don't know if anybody remembers Steve. It's been so long since he was in Slack. I was just in some of Steve's documentation, and he has one that's like mapping all of your G Suite settings, but my problem with that has always been that like I'm a human being and I sometimes forget to change things or write things down. And so,
On that specific note, just know that as your groups or as your companies grow and you start getting closer and closer into that very rigid certification world. Like for example, we just went through our FedRAMP authorization.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, SOC 2, you start getting really heavy into especially into FedRAMP. You have to have all of those things all documented and very strictly controlled. So getting on that documentation bus early on in your life cycle is really, really important.
So having a downloads folder that just has a load of screenshots of settings isn't enough.
It seems like I have.
As long as you put those screenshots somewhere else, maybe. A shared G drive folder.
Yeah.
I have a great extension I can recommend that'll take a screenshot of the whole web page instead of just the screen. So.
Oh, that'd be good. What extension's that?
I'll find it and I'll put it in the channel. I'm on my phone right now, so
all right,
I have to fire up my laptop.
Yeah. I must admit, this is a great video for phone. Is it iOS or Android?
That's an Android Pixel 4 XL.
Excellent.
Nice.
Excellent.
That's why.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad that it's on brand as well. Being
That's right.
Sweet.
That's how I sold them on buying it for me. It's a company phone,
Yeah.
so.
Excellent. Excellent. Work profiles are brilliant. That'd be a whole topic for another discussion. You know, mobile device management.
Yeah,
So
man.
we'll
It's a big
have to
topic.
say that we'll. I hope everybody, you know, found this 50 minutes or 45 minutes, because we had 5 minutes of messing about at the start, very useful and informative. You know, if everybody agrees, I will, you know, edit this a little bit and put it on YouTube as our first episode of, or I think, yeah, first episode of Solve. Then I'll sort out all of the calendar invites and, you know, start collecting and have a more of an agenda and, you know, get more people involved. And I'll try and do it every other week, as and when vacations get in the way. But, you know, Dominic and Rose can take over as well as being some of the regulars. So it's, yeah, the eyes rolling there, Rose.
I
All
got
right.
vacation
I can
too.
take over.
No, I'll do it. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you ever so much for joining and everybody in the insight and the discussion. We'll carry on the conversation in the Slack channel, Better IT, and I'll put the video up on SaaSOps.life.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Yep.
Happy
Bye.
Friday.
Sounds great.
Bye. Have a good
Bye,
weekend.
everybody.